my name is Rupi. I am a medical doctor and I'm founder of a company called The Doctor's Kitchen. The Doctor's Kitchen is a website, a podcast, a number of books where I inspire people about the beauty of food and the medicinal effects of eating well. And this is a new series called Inside the Doctor's Kitchen. It's basically giving you some insight into how I mistakenly created a personal brand and a brand, trying to figure out what actually I want to do with said company, which wasn't my intention to create in the first place, and give you some insights that might help you regardless of what career you're currently pursuing and where you're coming from it. You might be a medic, you might be involved in nutrition, or you might be looking at creating a completely different sort of business. And maybe my journey could help give you some insights as to how you might want to not make the same mistakes that I did along the way. This isn't a series to big myself up or talk about how many achievements I've had. I think this is really me practicing vulnerability and actually demonstrating to everyone, it hasn't been plain sailing the whole way, and it still won't be over the next 5, 10, 15 years, however long the company exists for, hopefully a lot longer than that. So the first part of this series, I thought I would talk about how I got started with the Doctor's Kitchen in the first place. Now, the way I got started was actually after medical school. So during medical school, I started medical school in 2003. I've been a doctor now for 11 years. And during medical school, I was always interested in food, always interested in cooking. I lived with a bunch of guys that loved cooking different cuisines, experimenting with spices. I grew up in a household, it was an Indian household, but we would always have different cuisines on our table. Mum was really experimental with food. It was amazing, culinary insights, and I was addicted and still am to Saturday Kitchen, which is one of my favorite shows on BBC. So I've always been interested in food, but the nutrition element didn't really come into it until I became ill myself and I was a patient. 3 months into qualifying as a junior doctor, I started suffering from something called atrial fibrillation, which is where your heart beats exceptionally fast and irregular. I was going into AF for no particular reason, without any particular triggers, 3 times a week for anywhere between 12 and 36 hours. I went through the whole process of seeing cardiologists, having all the investigations, including cardiac MRIs, stress tests, bloods, you name it. And I was offered something called an ablation, which I politely declined, and with the blessing of my cardiologist, I opted for a lifestyle approach. And that's where I got interested in the research behind nutritional medicine and lifestyle medicine. And the rest is history. After about 12 months, I managed to revert my own AF episodes, which sounds really wacky, and even saying it now, it's very strange that this is something that I was able to do. I don't think my personal issues can be applied directly to anyone else. I think everyone's journey is individual, and it's certainly in the nutritional element as well. But if you want more information about that kind of stuff, I would highly recommend you listen to the first episode of my podcast, where I talk a bit more about my personal medical history and how really the inception of the Doctor's Kitchen was me trying to retrospectively figure out how on earth I was able to stop my AF episodes using a diet and lifestyle approach. I'll put the link for the podcast episode down below somewhere. So fast forward to me getting into a healthy lifestyle, eating nuts, vegetables, lots more plants. I'm not vegan or vegetarian, but I do have a plant-focused approach. And I started thinking about how to democratize this information. I was training as a general practitioner. I started having more open, honest conversations with patients about type 2 diabetes, arthritis, blood sugar control, metabolic syndrome, and how we can use food beyond just weight control, which is obviously very important. And there sparked the idea of creating a set of videos where I explain nutritional science and the benefits of eating a certain way. I started I had the idea of putting on recipes and on YouTube and stuff, and just giving it to patients as a way of inspiring them to look after their health with food. That took literally 4 years, and the reason why, from the time I had the idea, 2011 to 2015, is because a doctor getting in front of a camera, talking about food as medicine, talking about nutrition, a subject that isn't taught well at medical school, was really daunting, and I didn't feel like I had the qualifications to do so. So that 4-year period was me refining my skills, getting in front of a camera like I am right now, and being able to talk confidently in a way that was appropriate and measured and unsensationalized, call it whatever you want. And I was very fearful of the backlash as well, particularly being a medic. So for different industries, I'm sure everyone has their own sort of vulnerabilities and sensitivities when it comes to talking about a subject matter that's slightly outside your comfort zone. But certainly within medicine, because you're held in such high regard, you're one of the most trusted professions out there. You've got to be really measured when it comes to talking about anything that could have an impact on people's health. So that was one of my reservations, and that's why it took until 2015. I remember the date exactly, is 8th of October 2015, when I pressed go on my YouTube, Instagram, and all that kind of stuff. And then I started making recipes and videos more often. I'll talk a little bit about the name. The name I've always had from 2011. It just came to me. I was like, oh yeah, like doctor in a kitchen, doctor's kitchen, and that was it. Which I'm still debating as to whether I should include in future iterations of the brand or not, was just natural, but I might remove that at some point. But yeah, it was always the Doctor's Kitchen, and I got a Wix website. I put together some blog posts. I read a whole, I've been reading nutrition articles for a number of years now, and I had a whole bunch of recipes, and I pressed go, and then it just went from there. And it wasn't a massive, huge hockey stick curve in terms of followers or anything. That was never really my aim. I wasn't even using hashtags, or I had no idea how to use Instagram, or I thought I was just going to be doing YouTube videos, and it turned out Instagram was a better platform because I noticed more people were engaging, and actually I genuinely loved being part of a community that was foodie and health focused and all the rest of it. So that was really how I started the Doctor's Kitchen. A couple of points that I would say. I got the brand, I guess. I didn't really see it as a brand. I just thought of it as a name, and I wanted to almost, because I was scared about the whole being a doctor and being fearful of a backlash from my medical colleagues, I kind of hid behind the Doctor's Kitchen almost. I still put my name on it, but I wanted to have a little bit of a barrier, which in retrospect is actually quite a good thing, and I'll come to that in later episodes. But I got the Doctor's Kitchen, I got the .co.uk and the .com. I just used a Wix and then registered the domain and whatever. I made sure I had relatively connected Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts, Doctors_Kitchen, which was close enough. And that was congruent the same way as well. So your same handle is across all those different socials. And I made sure that I was putting out good quality content as well, and that was it. And at the time I was only posting maybe once a week or twice a week. It's changed a lot now since the landscape, you have to be constantly posting. But at the time, that was what I did. So that in a nutshell is how I started the Doctor's Kitchen. And I was still working full-time at the time. I was living in Sydney, I was working in emergency medicine, I had qualified as a GP. I was comfortable enough that I'd seen, thousands of patients at that time, and I was, really vocal with them about the importance of nutrition, and I'd learned some behavioural techniques and motivational interviewing techniques as to how to convey that information in a way that was appropriate to the person in front of me. So I think I'd gathered enough sort of confidence by that time to talk about it, and actually my seniors in A&E at the time in Australia were super, super supportive. And if it wasn't for those people initially, and some of my mentors that I have now, and a strong group of friends that I told in confidence. There were only a handful of people that I admitted it to. I probably wouldn't have started it without them, because they gave me the initial positive energy to start and to continue as well, and they still do. So that's kind of how I started. The next episodes, let me just get my trusty piece of paper here. The next episodes, I'm going to be talking about building a brand by mistake, which is what I've alluded to. How I got into books, TV, podcasting, and the third episode will be about refining what I really want. And this is something I think is quite important when you're in the rat race of posting on social media the whole time, and it kind of just goes away from you a bit. And then I'm going to talk, and thereafter we're going to be doing weekly or 2 weekly catch-ups as to what I'm doing right now, because I'm super excited about where I'm taking the brand, the company, and what I want to create in 5 years' time, or 3 years' time maybe. So I want to talk to you about how I built a brand by mistake. Now, I alluded to how or why I did that in the first episode, but just to reiterate, the Doctor's Kitchen was just something I came up with in my head. Wouldn't it be a nice, cool name to call a YouTube channel, The Doctor's Kitchen? In retrospect, I may have dropped the, so it's just Doctor's Kitchen, because now I have a bit more clarity of where I want to take the brand. But I essentially built that brand by mistake. I had no intention of creating a brand. It was just a cool name I thought I could call the project. And it was a passion project. And to be honest, it still has been over the last 5 years. Despite the books and the podcast, in my head, it was like a passion project. Now I'm refining it into more of a business venture, something that I can commercialize, so I can live and work and breathe and create a community around the Doctor's Kitchen that isn't just on social media, but it's something that can create livelihoods for other people who want to be part and represent that brand as well, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this inside the Doctor's Kitchen series, if I'm honest. So one thing I would say is it's really important to clarify for yourself whatever project you're doing, whether you want to do a project or not, but to clarify whether you want a personal brand, i.e. your name, or you want a brand that you can build and step behind or live behind, even if you are the face of that brand for the first couple of years. Now, I'm not a brand expert. This is purely from my own experience. But if I was Dr. Rupi Aujla, the guy who likes cooking, I probably would have pivoted by now into something else that I can represent. Whether it's a different name, whether it's something like cook, or I don't know, whatever it would be, I would probably have moved that onto something else. If you're someone who wants to be known as the math guy, or you want to just build a journalist, like real respect within journalism, for example, of a particular niche, let's say, then yes, using your own name might be a more appropriate use of a brand, or the mechanisms behind creating a brand. But for me, Doctor's Kitchen is definitely something I'm glad I did by mistake 5 or 6 years ago, or actually no, before I even started the project. The reason why I say that is because in 100 years' time, I want the Doctor's Kitchen to exist in the same way. Maybe Kellogg's is a bad example, but in the same way there are brands that exist now that still represent the core underpinnings of why they started in the first place. So that's really why I'm glad I stuck with the Doctor's Kitchen. I'm still the face of the brand right now, but perhaps in 5 or 10 years' time, there will be relevant faces in different communities around the world that represent Doctor's Kitchen. So somebody in China or India or Australia or even parts of North America, that can be represented by someone local who can actually adapt to the local needs of whatever healthy eating looks like for that particular population or that particular community. So that's what I want to say about brand. And the good thing about it is that I can put that brand under a number of different things, a number of different outputs of what we do in the kitchen. So whether that's a podcast or a fruit and vegetable box or a digital app, which I'm in the process of creating, I'll talk about that in later episodes. It's good to be able to have that logo, that message, that wording, That's why I think it's a good sort of thing to do if you've got, you know, white joke as thoughts of grandeur, grandiose ideas and ideations about where you want to take whatever project you're doing, which I 100% did not have back in 2015 when I started. It's just now I'm conjuring energy and I'm like, okay, now I want to do things. I do want to talk a bit about how I started my books, my TV stuff with BBC and the podcast. I know the title of this sounds douchey, and this is not me intending to brag or anything like that, and you'll realise by the end of it it's definitely not me bragging, because I'll give you the insights as to how you become a Sunday Times bestseller in the first place. So along the journey around 2016, so this is March 2016, I got approached by a literary agent who I still work with now, as well as the talent agent that I definitely do not work with because I had a very bad experience with them. So again, it's another one of those things along my journey. You always have to be quite careful whenever someone feels that they can help your brand or they want to take you to the next level. You've got to really do your homework behind them, which I definitely did not. So around March, this is 7-8 months after I'd started the Doctor's Kitchen accounts on YouTube and Instagram. I perhaps only had about 3,000 followers at that time, but I was discovered by a literary agent via people who followed me on Instagram and the community, which is is a lesson in itself. Always nurture the community that you're in, respect people, and help each other out as well. And that's exactly what happened. So as fortune had it, I got introduced to my literary agent, and it turns out there was someone at HarperCollins, my former editor, who'd already been following me as well. And I was putting out good content, recipes and all the information about nutrition and stuff. And there was clearly a space in the market there for someone who was qualified to talk about healthy eating in light of a lot of unqualified people talking about the, you know, over-sensationalizing the benefits of nutrition. And there've been some pretty high profile cases, one's in Australia, one's in America, of people giving erroneous advice online. And so that's kind of where the world of me being on social media and then me transitioning to traditional media collided. I want to say from the outset, I had no intention to write a book. Never in my wildest dreams did I even think about writing a book. When I clicked, you know, to go on the first couple of posts on my Instagram account and all the rest of it, I definitely did not think, you know, 12 months later I'd be in negotiations for writing a cookbook. That was definitely not my intention. Once it was offered to me, straight away I was like, absolutely, I mean, this sounds amazing. And I quickly got into that mindset of, I know the kind of things I want to talk about. I got a lot of help from my literary agent at the time, trying to refine the message of you know, what a book could be. So it was a really exciting experience working as a doctor back in the NHS. I'd moved back to the UK from Australia at that time. I'd lived in Australia for 2 years doing emergency medicine. And yeah, it was crazy. I was doing general practice, I was working in A&E, I was a full-time doctor, and I was also planning, you know, what a cookbook could look like. And I had no idea as to, you know, whether the book was going to be successful or not, but certainly by being picked up by my publishers, HarperCollins, who are a really reputable publisher, an imprint of HarperCollins called Thornson's, who I'm still with currently. It was great. It was a really good experience and pretty wacky. And since then, things sort of snowballed. So I was asked as part of the promotion for the book. I mean, me writing a book is a whole other series in itself, and I can go through the steps for that in a different sort of video. But once I'd written the book and we'd done the photo shoot, and then the promotion sort of starts. And if you're new to the publishing industry, have no idea about it, this is where the grind really starts. You've got to get featured in newspapers, you have to write articles, you need to do radio interviews. If you can get on the radio interview, if you get the opportunity to do TV and live TV, which I've had the pleasure of doing, you need to be able to step up your game and, you know, not fluff the lines or fluff the response to questions and stuff. I'll put a link down to my first appearance on ITV this morning, where I was doing the recipe and one of the ingredients was forgotten on the list, and it was a pretty important ingredient. It was prawns in a prawn dish. So yeah, it's kind of funny actually now when you look back on it, but that's definitely something that I was really fortunate to have the opportunity to. In addition to doing all the promotion, the traditional stuff, I was told that I should start a podcast. So this is in end of 2017, going to 2018. And the idea from my publishers, this was not me, my publishers, was do 6 episodes, promote the book, talk about the principles of healthy eating that you refer to in the book, and it will help, get more ears on the book as well as eyes on the book through TV and traditional means. So me starting a podcast was completely their fault, and I'm so glad I did, because we've had millions of listeners since then, and it's been a pleasure to interview experts from around the world on different topics like immune health, eye health, migraines, what we can eat for inflammatory bowel disease, a whole bunch of other topics. Going back to how I became a Sunday Times bestseller. So the way it works is Sunday Times print. I shouldn't be cross. There's an ambulance probably going to my hospital. The way it works is the Sunday Times manual that comes out every week, but it alternates in terms of what they feature on the Sunday Times bestseller list. There's non-fiction, there's a whole bunch of other categories in books. Cookbooks come under the non-fiction, so you're really competing with the big hitting titles. Michelle Obama's book or whatever book that's selling in that said week. The way you become a Sunday Times bestseller is you have to sell or get into the top 5 of the most sold books across all platforms, including Amazon, W.H. Smith, and a whole bunch of other independents and stuff. You have to be able to sell, you have to be one of the highest selling books in that category in that week when the manuals are being featured in the Sunday Times paper itself. And that alternates on different weeks. And so you can be pitched up against some huge books, like Alan Kay's book has been sold millions of times. There's some really well-known titles that continue to sell week in, week out. But if you are launching your book on a given week, let's say the 3rd week of January, and in that week, you launch your book, your pre-orders, which might be in the thousands, will contribute to that total order of books that are going to Sunday Times. They've gone the wrong way and they've come back. That total amount will contribute to that week's number of books sold. So if you have really healthy pre-orders of, let's say, 5,000 books, and you have a big launch and stuff, and that contributes another 1,000 books, let's say, then the number of books sold in that week is really high. It's 6,000 books, and that might be enough, just enough, to get you into that top 5, and then you become a Sunday Times bestseller, if you're able to do that. Whereas in comparison, loads of other books might have sold 50,000 books when they first launched, but because their launch was 2 or 3 months prior, they might only be selling, I say only, but they might be selling 3,000 books a week or 5,000 books a week, which is still a healthy number of books to sell in any given week. But you might just be just above those said books to qualify for the top 5 selling books of the said week, which gets you into the Sunday Times bestselling list. The first time my book was published, I didn't make the Sunday Times bestselling list. The reason why is because on my launch day, it didn't exactly match with the Sunday Times manual coming out that week. And so even though I had sales to qualify to be a Sunday Times bestseller, because it wasn't featured in that week in the Sunday Times, I didn't get the Sunday Times bestseller label. That did happen on my second book, but the ironic thing is the number of total sales for my second book is about half the number of sales that I got for my first book, but I still qualified to be a Sunday Times bestseller for the second book. So you can see it's kind of it's a little bit misrepresented, the label of having a Sunday Times bestseller. You can sell tons of books throughout the entire year, and you can have sales of, let's say, 100,000 books, which is a really amazing number of books to sell in that whole time period. But if it's steady and slow over that time period, then you don't break into that barrier and you don't get the label. It's a funny system. And so even though I think my second book is better than my first, or it's a good transition from the first book, they're both great books in their own right, but I would say that. Links probably below somewhere. It's just funny how the cookie crumbles like that. So you can tell on my journey, which started in 2015, I didn't intend to write a book. I didn't intend to create a podcast. I didn't intend to do any TV stuff. It was really just going to be a platform to push people, patients, and inspire people how to eat healthy. And yet, the three outputs that came out of me just putting out some recipes online now happen to be some of the biggest inputs in terms of capital and cash flow into the company from podcasts, books, and TV, which help fuel the former two. So that's some insight into how I become a Sunday Times bestseller. My second book, which released in March, we had a really big launch. It was lucky at a time where there weren't any other big books at the time. We did really well in terms of features in national newspapers and on TV and all the rest of it. And that's why we got enough sales to get into the Sunday Times bestseller list. I think it was like number 4 or something like that, which is great. But it isn't indicative of the hard work that goes in throughout the entire year trying to get as many books into people's hands, because I truly believe that the books that I put out there are genuinely helpful, and I get really good feedback from people as well, which I never thought about going forward, but it's definitely something I'm glad I've done. And this comes to the 4th episode in Inside the Doctor's Kitchen. It's discovering what I really want to do. Out of me putting out recipes out there and getting spotted, doing podcasts and books and all the rest of it now, I'm really trying to refine what I actually want to do and where I want to take the company. And I think it's really important. It's a really important question to ask yourself really early on, and it's something that I didn't ask myself when I started the company or started the project in the first place. I kid you not, I didn't actually register it as a company until 2 or 3 years after I started the project. So that gives you some insight into how uncommercial I was when thinking about these kind of things. So in the next episode, I'm going to talk about refining what I really want and the journey I've been on to try and answer that question, and how it's a never-ending question, because what I wanted 2 years ago is completely different to what I want to do now. And I think having that crystal vision of where you want to go is super important, because otherwise you bumble down the road not really figuring out what you want to do. And I'm glad I've been fortunate in loads of ways. I've lucked out so many times by doing the podcast and the books and all the rest of it. But I think when you're in a situation where you're trying to spin all those different plates, now you need to refine exactly what you want to do, because you almost get opportunity fatigue. This is super important for anyone starting out in particular, or those who have started a project and are sort of trying to figure out if they need to pivot, or they need to make it iterations, or they need to just crystallize exactly what's going on and where they want to be in the future. This is a really important question, because I've never really thought about this enough when I started the project. When I started the project, even though I took 4 years, and if you don't know, I took 4 years, and look at episode 1. Even during those 4 years, I had no idea of really where I wanted to take it. Was I going to be a TV presenter? No, I had no intention of doing that. Did I want to create books? Never in my wildest dreams did I think I was going to do a cookbook. I'm not a professional chef. did I want to do something in the healthcare space in a more sort of techie route? I wasn't even thinking about technological interventions or any sort of business opportunities in that respect. So really, there are a lot of ambulances around today. Anyway, what I really wanted to, what I want to talk about in this particular episode is a couple of exercises that I've done to help me refine exactly what I want to do, and maybe they'll come to be helpful for you as well. The first thing is taking stock of what you've done thus far, even if it's prior to you starting a passion project or a business, a charity, whatever it is. Taking stock of what your achievements are and what your resources and strengths are as well. So taking myself as an example, not to talk about myself the whole time, even though it is inside the doctor's kitchen. I've got medicine, I've got soon to have a master's in nutrition, I've got experience in writing, I know the publishing industry, I know kind of how it works on a sort of higher level. I understand the podcast world, and I'm deeply, deeply interested in tech, and I have been for a number of years now. Really, when I take stock of everything that I've done thus far, I need to channel that into refining exactly how I want to be living in the next 5, 10, 15 years. I'm 35 now, so I really should be thinking about this, or I should have thought about this a number of years ago. And it's kind of like trying to figure out what you want your day to look like, as well as what your month and your year to look like as well. For me, what I want to do is be the ecosystem, or contribute to the ecosystem that looks after people's health on a daily basis using food and lifestyle. That is it. And when I sat down and asked myself these questions, what I tried to do are visualization exercises. So that's the first thing. It's visualizing exactly how your day plans out, but also on a grander scale, what you want to achieve. And I know that those sound quite conflicting, both of those, but let me explain it a bit more. So when you sit down and do a visualization exercise, you ask yourself some questions. In 5 years' time, when you wake up, where are you? How do you feel? How does your body feel? How does your mind feel? Are you clear? When you wake up, where are you? Which country are you in? What does the smell like? What is the temperature like? Where are you about to go where are you about to go in the morning? Is there anyone else there around you? Is your family there? Your friends there? All these different things. And that gives you a real sort of crystal idea of how you want to wake up in 5 years' time. But then also it kind of speaks to, well, if that's how you want to wake up in 5 years' time, what have you done thus far to get yourself to that level? And in my case, it's, okay, me waking up and going to work involves me working in a team, working in tech remotely, most likely, working geographically indistinct, so I'm not fixed to a particular location, and always working with the grand idea of helping people through food and lifestyle. And what that led me to understand is I need to be in tech. I need to start a company that can scale up the information, democratize the information around healthy eating and lifestyle, using the tools that we have around us, which one of the biggest ones is tech now. And when I say tech, I'm talking about digital platforms, apps, ways in which to nudge certain behaviors, but also massively reduce the friction or the perceived friction of healthy eating. It's also about information and information sharing. So I'll get to exactly what we're trying to build in the Doctor's Kitchen, but that kind of process of visualization really helped me refine exactly what I want. Because otherwise, if I hadn't really thought about that, I'd be being pulled in lots of different directions. Do you want to present this TV show? You'd be really good, talking about this kind of, new diet that's coming out, or, certain patients. And that's great for some people, but when I ask myself, in 5 years' time, do I want to be presenting shows on Netflix or Channel 4? I don't think so. That's not really what I want. It might be what you want, it might be what other people want, but it's definitely not what sits well with me. And I think refining exactly what you want to do will be super helpful from that perspective too. So that's me rambling on about, what I want and trying to crystallize exactly what the process was for me. The other thing that's really helped me is having mentors. So having people to sound things off. And there's a whole bunch of friends, both in medicine and outside medicine. Some people in entrepreneurship, people that I've met through the clinical entrepreneurship program, which is run by the NHS, which if you're involved in healthcare and you do have any sort of innovation, whether it be tech related or otherwise, then I'd highly recommend you look up the clinical entrepreneurship program with the NHS innovations team. Being able to talk openly and honestly about my aspirations, however grandiose those are, and not being ridiculed, developing a community where you can actually have those honest conversations has been pivotal for me. And I think finding trusted aides and people who've got your back and want to see you succeed is really, really, really important. And it's not always your loved ones, because sometimes your loved ones will, in order to protect you or feel like they're protecting you, kind of sway you to not do what you love. And I think doing what you love is super important. I think we all have the opportunity to do that now. We're lucky enough to live in societies, and if you're watching this, you're probably lucky as well. So yeah, that's definitely, having sounding boards has been really important for me to refine exactly what I want, what really does make me happy. And one thing that I realized that really makes me happy is when someone cooks my recipe, shares it with their friends and family, and then tells me about how much they enjoyed it, or how much better they're feeling after eating a certain way for a prolonged period of time, or how much clearer they feel about nutrition in general, how much less anxiety they have around food because they know what they should be eating now. Those sorts of interactions I absolutely love, and that's what I want to scale. And scaling isn't for everyone, but for me, because I have grandiose ideas, that's what I want to multiply a number of times over to try and have as big as impact as I possibly can. And I wasn't thinking this way 5 years ago. And I wouldn't be if I was being pulled in loads of directions, do this number of books, or do this number of podcasts, or help someone with this, or be the chief medical officer for that, or represent a supplement company, or promote this tea. You'll be pulled in loads of different directions, but have crystal ideas about what you want to do. So visualizing, having mentors, and just sitting time with yourself and looking at what's out there as well. And you don't always have to start something on your own. Sometimes joining a team and being something that's already in existence right now is just as impactful. And in fact, as the company grows, which I hope it will, we'll be looking for people who have shared interests and shared passion in nutritional medicine to try and scale the vision. Now I want to focus on what I've alluded to in terms of what I actually want to do. It's been a project for about 2 years. And in the next episode, I'm going to talk a bit more about what that project has looked like, the failings, the successes, the mistakes, of which I'm sure there'll be plenty more going forward. And this is really what I want to do. Doctor's Kitchen Digital. What does that mean? So for the last 2 years, probably longer than that, I've been thinking about how to scale and democratize this nutrition information, make healthy eating seamless, frictionless for everyone, as easy as it is to order Amazon products that you don't really need right now. Like, that's the level of ease that I want to offer to people who want to look after their health. And it's something that stems from my clinical experience. People are motivated. People know what they should be doing the same way we know we shouldn't be smoking, we know we should be exercising, all that kind of stuff. But there are a whole bunch of barriers to entry, essentially, that exist, whether you can see them or not. Whether it's the extra effort it takes for you to go to the supermarket and actually do your shopping from scratch, or navigating the supermarket shelves and trying to figure out what is an erroneous health claim versus something that actually has genuine value or is appropriate for you as an individual, because we all have slightly different nutritional needs. So I remember vividly on the launch party of my first book, this is in 2018, I was busy writing and publishing my first online course, which I thought was going to solve this problem. It was basically a brain dump of everything that I know about nutritional medicine and lifestyle medicine. We called it the Lifestyle 360 course, and it was, how to navigate a supermarket, how to cook lentils from scratch, how to stock your cupboards, your fridge, your freezer, like all the different nuggets of information that I give out to people all the time in clinic and online. And I collated it into a course that was reasonably priced. It still exists, actually. It's on my website, and I put it out there. I didn't do a big push because I wanted to get some feedback from users, and the feedback I got was good. The course was fulfilling a purpose. People felt a lot more informed after doing the course. But I realized that, and you look at the stats, the attrition rate was huge, and the course was really big. It's like 70 odd parts of it, including recipes and videos and a whole bunch of other things, like loads of other content. So I realized that even though, yes, the content is great, the way it's formulated, the way it was put together was just a mountain of information and quite hard to consume, even for the most motivated of consumers who will pay the price and actually start the course. So that was my first learning experience of, yes, you can put something online, but it doesn't mean that people will engage in it even if they are interested in the subject matter. So this led me to do a lot of research. So with a friend of mine, we actually surveyed the course members, and we got some feedback from them about what they thought about the course, where they thought they needed more information, what could be made better. And there's a famous quote that Henry Ford says, if you ask people what they wanted back in the 1920s, they would have said a faster horse. And that's something you always have to be wary of as well whenever you're getting survey feedback. People, when I ask them, what do you want from the doctor's kitchen? Immediately they'll say, we want more recipes, or I want recipes geared towards X, Y, Z. Whereas in reality, what they think they need versus what they would find useful might be two different things. And so that's something to always bear in mind when doing research. So the research of the lifestyle course was great. Loads of people interacted with it, and it was a good course. But I knew not to push it because that's, even when the course is out there and it's still out there, I know that wasn't what I really wanted to do. I didn't want to just create a course and let it sit there and have people have to navigate it themselves, because I knew the attrition rate was quite big. So what did I do thereafter? Well, we started wireframing what a perfect course or a digital platform would look like. So the wireframing, for those of you who aren't familiar with tech speak, is basically just mapping out what a user journey looks like and what the pages look like. So a wireframe for a website will be an about page, a home page, a couple other features, blog posts or whatever, and you can see what the user journey looks like if you click on certain buttons. So that's what we started doing for a Doctor's Kitchen course, and then we kind of refined it down into a platform or an app that solves one of the pain points, and one of those pain points is what to eat for dinner, or how to meal plan in less than 30 seconds. With the price point of a normal supermarket shop, but given the added convenience of something that is delivered to you like Deliveroo. And so that's where we started. That was sort of like our point zero. And about a year and 3 months ago, we had a clickable prototype that a friend of mine, I paid for her for a time because I wanted a more formal relationship, but we were thinking about a co-founding role at the time. She mocked up a clickable prototype using InVision, which is a standard software that a lot of UX designers use. And we got a focus group. So I put out a call out via social media. We had about 200 respondents. The ask was their time for an hour in the Doctor's Kitchen studio. I was using a studio at the time, similar to the one that we're in at the moment. And the ask was, an hour of your time. I'm going to ask you loads of questions about a new exciting digital product that's coming out with the Doctor's Kitchen. And we took 8 people through. I mean, we had 200 responses. We refined our criteria to get people from lots of different backgrounds. So a mixture of sex, a mixture of whether they're from a household with 4 people or single professional, just to get some like different ideas about who this product could initially be useful for. And we'd also sort of conjured up our ideal user as well, but we didn't want to make too many assumptions. So then we did testing with this clickable prototype for 8 people that really nice, and gave up their time in exchange for a free book, which I signed. It's always nice having a book. It's kind of like your business card. And we did some testing. We got really good feedback. People loved the idea of a product that helped them with shopping. But it was interesting, the initial insights. They immediately thought it was going to be a meal kit, like a HelloFresh or a Gusto, because that's what people understand now is sort of the baseline of when people come up with healthy eating products. But what this is like a digital version, essentially. Or that's what we ended up sort of talking about afterwards. And so there we had an idea. We kind of had a basic idea of what the MVP, the minimal viable product, would look like, which is your first sort of digital, it doesn't have to be digital, but like in this case, it is a digital product that you can put out and test to market and refine and iterate and learn and get feedback from users from. And that was sort of like our ground zero. And then an interesting thing happened. Because this was a friend of mine, we started talking about splits of equity and what that might look like. And obviously I've started the brand, so I'd have control. But how do you split an imaginary pie? And this imaginary pie wouldn't be the Doctor's Kitchen Limited as it is now. It would be the Doctor's Kitchen Digital, which is the direction I'm going in. So I'm sort of splitting out 2 different companies. And how do you split that pie is very interesting. There's one episode on the Gimlet podcast, Startup, which I absolutely love. I'm sure it's been downloaded millions of times. And it's how to split an imaginary pie. It's where you have 2 people who are involved in the founding process, even though it was largely myself in this. But let's say 2 people in a founding process. Someone has the idea, and someone has the brains, and someone has the muscle, and someone has the, loads of other skills. How do you split the equity? And it's a real interesting concept, and one that I struggle to even understand now, if I'm honest. What my colleague my friend was asking was too much of what I thought, and eventually the conversation broke down into, well, I'm just going to pay you for your time. That was our plan B. We always had a plan. You always have to have a plan B. You never want to jeopardize your friendships, and we'll see where it goes. And I'll take the financial hit for now. Pay you for your time. We'll go separate ways. I'll carry on with building the project and trying to find developers and designers to help me along the journey. And we'll call it quits for now, and then we'll just move on. And that's essentially what happened. And so that was about a year ago. And since then, I must have had conversations with 30 odd development agencies and people and potential founders and potential people who could help. And I've had quotes ranging from 150 grand to 60 grand to less than 15. It's been a real roller coaster for someone who's non-tech trying to build a tech company. And this is what I want inside the Doctor's Kitchen to be going forward. Me, as a non-tech person from a medical background, who's not really what I would regard as an entrepreneur in the sort of trendy definition of it at the moment. The way I think of an entrepreneur is someone who starts a corner shop business and lives above it. Like, that's an entrepreneur to me. Or someone like my dad, who has run and operated a plumbing and heating supply business for like 30 years from scratch. Now an entrepreneur is someone like Elon Musk or someone who's a billionaire. I'm not trying to negate either. I just think anyone who's got grit and determination and is stupid and brave and courageous enough, all in the right mixture, to do something on your own and give up a stable career, as I am currently with medicine. I still work as a doctor, but I gradually chipped away at my hours so I can focus on other things. You have to have that kind of mix of attributes, I guess. So long story short, after having multiple conversations with multiple different people, trying to find a partner for this and trying to find the capital as well, I've now refined what I regard as the team, the digital Doctor's Kitchen team, which a group of awesome guys led by one person I was introduced to by one of my best friends who's also starting his own company. A lot of help came from the clinical entrepreneurship program with the NHS. I've got some wonderful mentors there, like Liz from Orca, who's amazing. This is sort of my journey thus far. So what I've thus far found is I've refined exactly what I want this app to do. And what this app will do is personalize according to taste preferences and dietary requirements meals that are relevant to the individual user, that can be plugged into a meal plan in less than 30 seconds rather, and integrated with online shopping so that the user can have their ingredients delivered to them so they can eat Doctor's Kitchen meals every day, every week. The future of said product will be where we can refine exactly what the user's individual needs are based on health performance or health requirements. So if you have arthritis, or you have a skin issue, or you're looking to improve fertility, we can conjure up and refine meals that suit your nutritional needs and build personalized meal plans for you, integrate those with online shopping to allow every element of your healthy eating journey to be seamless and frictionless. And obviously the future of that is integrating wearables and a whole bunch of other features that can really dig down into what your needs are. But the initial product will be an app that gives you that Doctor's Kitchen journey. I know what most people should be eating, and now it's putting together a team of people who can create beautiful imagery and recipes, people who can independently review the research, people much cleverer than myself, for example. Even though I'm doing my master's in nutritional medicine and I've been entrenched in this subject for the last probably 10 years now, I still regard myself as a junior, as someone who's still trying to learn and get to grips with this huge, vast nutritional world, which is ever encompassing, and it always has other avenues to explore. Getting the right tech team as well, someone who understands user design, who can reduce the decision fatigue, who can maximize interaction, who can build a beautiful product and something that is easy to, once you have a foundation, to iterate upon. And that's what inside the Doctor's Kitchen is going to be. It's going to be me giving you updates about what's happened thus far, where we are on our journey, what the app looks like, and taking you on that journey with you, because with me rather, because it would be great to see if there are other people who want to join the team at some point. Maybe there's funding opportunities, maybe there's collaboration opportunities, who knows? But I thought I would be honest, put myself out there, be really vulnerable. Whether anyone's listening to this or not, I don't know. But yeah, we'll put it out there and then we'll see what happens. And we'll be looking to get a beta sort of test group of users to interact with the product and give feedback on as well. So that's essentially what I want. What we want is to create an ecosystem, a digital product that will help 10 million people eat Doctor's Kitchen meals every day. It's a huge ambition. I know we can hit that. In my heart, that's exactly what I want to do, is to help people eat the way that's personal for them, that helps people achieve their fullest potential, whatever that might be. because I know what it's like to be vulnerable and to be a patient and to not know what the hell to do. Because that was me being a 24-year-old with atrial fibrillation, with no otherwise issues and no family history, no weight issues, nothing. And it's a mystery even now as to why that was the case and why my threshold for illness is much lower than my peers, despite me being seemingly normal. So that's it. That's the Doctor's Kitchen Digital. This is the first 5 episodes of Inside the Doctor's Kitchen. I will be doing updates on this on LinkedIn, on the page, the Doctor's Kitchen page. So follow along if you're just interested, or if you want me to talk about certain subjects, I can as well. If you want me to dig deeper into, how I found the team or what kind of team attributes there are, whatever you want, I'll try and do some content based on that to take you on this journey with me.